Hi friends, this is your pal Scott Garibay, and today we are going to talk about American politics, and we're specifically going to talk about a new media scion, Andrew Callaghan, and he was recently interviewed by Neil Brennan, who is a comedian who wrote for Dave Chappelle on the Chappelle Show. Now he's a brick wall and a microphone stand-up, but he's very, very good, and he has this podcast which is tremendous. He's doing a phenomenal job. It's called the Blocks Podcast. I cannot recommend it highly enough. But normally he interviews comedians and he'll have talks with them. But Andrew Callaghan is not a comedian. Andrew Callaghan is a new media scion. So what is new media? So it's everything that New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and CNN are not, right? So Andrew Callaghan's just one simple guy. And he started by going and documenting, he does documentaries, but he started by going and witnessing weird communities like flat earthers or UFO enthusiasts. And he would just kind of show up and ask questions and show the world these communities. And he says he's not ashamed of that, but he's very glad that he's moved on from it. And he's, at this point, he's doing documentaries and he's covering real news, but he just shows up with himself and a cameraman, and he doesn't have, and he's supported by Patreon, right? So he doesn't have the agendas that are massive, like that are just weighing down every journalist that works for the CNN, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal. They have these huge, like when they go to do a story, one, they're much slower than Andrew Callaghan, and they got to wonder, and each journalist has to wonder if they can report what they see, because it's going to go through this corporate filter, right? Like, and we have alliances with this country, or we have alliances with this company, or we have stakes in this product. And so he's really free, right? But what was really interesting is he talked about how with Neil Brennan about how he accomplished all this. And Neil's like, well, what do you want to do next? And he's like, well, I want to do this like the New York Times. And he's like, the New York Times? And he's like, yeah, pretty big paper. And he's like, dude, you are the New York Times now. And he says, like, nobody trusts those old institutions. That stuff has fallen away. You are the future. And Andrew Callaghan said, yeah, I've been able, I really have reached a point where I am doing real news. But sometimes I just wonder, why am I here? Like, I don't understand why people are tuning into me for a Hunter Biden interview, right? Like, why wouldn't that go to some of these old institutions still, right? And Neil Brennan's just kind of shaking his head, and he says, well, I'll answer, right? And he says, you are where you are for the exact same reason as Joe Rogan. And he said, all the large institutions, they have forfeited position. Okay, there is no moral or ethical authority, right? And as soon as he said it, I was like, yeah, that's it, right? Because there were people, back in the 50s and the 60s, they would just turn on their television and they'd see an anchor there, and they're like, this guy's going to give me the objective truth, right? And they expected that, these people were moral, that they had a moral and ethical center, right? And that they wanted to tell the truth about what was happening in the world. They wanted to shine a light on evil. And so Neil Brennan is saying, no. He's like, there's no one, no one believes anybody has any moral or ethical high ground. So as soon as, you don't believe that any of the institutions have moral or ethical high ground, you're willing to go to a guy like Andrew Callaghan, right? Just like not traditionally trained, really nothing more than a workaholism, blended with, an absolute passionate drive to cover stories quickly and broadly and honestly, right? But he's not really traditionally trained. He doesn't have resources the way these institutions would traditionally have resources to get to different places, although that is changing. He is making bank. He's making more than enough to cover the things he wants to cover. which is really fascinating. So I think Neil Brennan is 100% right. It's, you know, guys like Andrew Callaghan, guys like Joe Rogan, people are like, why are these guys at the forefront of political commentary, at the forefront of news coverage? And the reason why is the major institutions have absolutely forfeited position. They have forfeited, and the way they forfeited position is they proved that there was no moral or ethical high ground, right? And so once that happens, it's anybody's ball game, right? Anybody can come in and replace the older institutions, and that's exactly what's happening. That's exactly what's happening. So really fascinating. Every single word you just heard in this video is my humble opinion. The important thing is when I get to hear your humble opinion, when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider like, subscribing, and have a fetch millennium.